My daughter-in-law and her mother planned a trap. They left me on a deserted highway, more than 186 miles from home. "If you want to get back, walk," they shouted, laughing, as I stood there with my suitcases in my hand. I thought it was a joke, but it was the cruelest goodbye of my life. I never went back. 3 years later, when life was finally smiling on me, they knocked on my door. She called me 72 times, desperate. When I finally answered, my response changed everything. It was unexpected and definitive. My hands, which had held theirs so many times, were now clutching at nothing as the desert swallowed the light of the sunset. The dust built up in my parched throat as I screamed his name, knowing he wouldn't hear me. He didn't want to hear me. "Michael! Michael!" Only the wind responded, mocking my despair. My son, my only son, had abandoned me in the middle of nowhere, on a deserted highway between Phoenix and Tucson, Arizona. The bottle of water they left me was almost empty. The sun was beginning to set, and the reality of my situation hit me with every accelerated beat of my heart. I am 68 years old, I have arthritis, and my son wants me dead. It had all begun 3 years ago, when Michael, at 42, introduced me to Clara. She was an attractive woman, 10 years younger than him, with a calculating smile that I, at the time, mistook for shyness. "Mum, she's special," he had told me. And I, happy to see him excited after his divorce, had blessed them with my approval. I didn't see the signs, or perhaps I didn't want to see them. The way Clara examined my house, evaluating every object as if it already belonged to her. The questions about my savings, about my will, about future plans. The insistence that I sell my house to move in with them to a more modern, more comfortable, safer one. My house. The one I had bought with my late husband 40 years ago. The one I had maintained with my teacher's salary after being widowed. The one that had been Michael's refuge during his childhood and adolescence. My home. "It's for your own good, Mum," Michael insisted. "You can't live alone anymore." But I could. I still can. My arthritis makes some tasks difficult, but my mind is clear. My routines are established. My neighbors know me and look out for me. I didn't need help that involved giving up my independence, my dignity. The pressure mounted when Barbara, Clara's mother, joined the campaign. A bitter woman who saw me as an obstacle to her daughter's plans. "Old people are stubborn," I heard her say once, believing I couldn't hear her. But they all become docile eventually. I resisted for months. I resisted the surprise visits, the inspections of my refrigerator, the comments about the dust on the high shelves that I could no longer reach to clean. I resisted the attempts to isolate me from my friends, to convince me that I needed constant supervision, to make me feel incompetent. Until today. Until Michael told me he had found a perfect house for the 4 of us. Him, Clara, Barbara, and me. A house we could buy if I sold mine. We needed to go see it immediately, he insisted. It was a unique opportunity. The coffee that Clara offered me before leaving had a strange taste, but I drank it so as not to offend her. By the time we got into the car, I felt dizzy, confused. Michael and Clara's voices came through distorted, as if through a tunnel. I remember fragments of the trip, roads I didn't recognize, whispered conversations, contained laughter. When the car stopped, we were in the middle of nowhere. Michael helped me get out, gave me a bottle of water and a bag with a sandwich. "Wait here, Mum. We'll be back soon." They didn't return. The effect of whatever they had given me began to wear off as I watched the car's taillights disappear into the horizon. And then I understood. There was no house. There was no concern for my well-being. Only greed. Greed for my property, for my money, for getting rid of the burden I represented. Now the sun has completely set. The temperature drops quickly, as only happens in the desert. My light jacket won't be enough for the night. There is no phone signal. There are no visible lights in any direction. No sound of traffic nearby. I sit on the side of the road, trying to control the panic. I need to think. I need a plan. I need to survive this night so I can seek help tomorrow. And I need to accept a devastating truth. My own son has tried to kill me. The cold of the desert night seeps through my clothes as I gaze at the stars, wondering if they will be the last thing I see. But something inside me refuses to give up. A spark of indignation, of rage, of determination. I will not die here. I will not give them that satisfaction. With effort, I stand up. The road stretches in both directions, like a black scar on the earth. I don't know which is the way back to civilization, but staying still means certain death. I choose a direction and begin to walk. Every step is a declaration, every breath, an act of rebellion. My name is Eleanor Johnson. I am 68 years old. My son wants me dead, but I choose to live. The Sonoran Desert doesn't forgive the unprepared. I know this because I've taught it for decades to my elementary school students. The extreme temperatures, the lack of water, the dangerous animals. I never imagined that someday my survival would depend on those lessons. The night advances as I walk along the empty road. My steps are slow, but constant. The arthritis in my knees protests with every movement, but the pain is almost welcome. It keeps me alert. It reminds me that I am still alive. I ration the water I have left, barely a few sips in the bottle. The sandwich they left me, a gesture of false compassion that now seems obscene. I save it for when the hunger is unbearable. Now I need all my strength to keep moving forward. The stars are my only company, bright, indifferent to my tragedy. I use the North Star to orient myself, confirming that I am heading north. If my calculations are correct, I should eventually reach some town, maybe even Tucson. But how many miles separate me from civilization? Can I cover them before dehydration, heat, or exhaustion defeat me? Every so often, I stop to rest. I sit on the edge of the road, close my eyes, and breathe deeply. In those moments, memories assault me. Michael as a child, running toward me with open arms. Michael as a teenager, rebellious but good-hearted. Michael as an adult, visiting me every Sunday without fail until Clara entered our lives. At what point did my son become a stranger? When was love replaced by convenience, by the cold calculation of what he could get from me? The sound of a rattle pulls me out of my thoughts. A few feet away, a snake slithers across the hot earth. I stay motionless, holding my breath until the animal disappears into the darkness. A reminder that I am not alone in this desert, and that not all my companions are friendly. I keep walking. The moon dimly illuminates the road, casting ghostly shadows of cacti and dry bushes. The cold intensifies, making my teeth chatter. I rub my arms, trying to generate heat, but my tired body barely responds. When my legs finally refuse to take another step, I look for shelter. A group of large rocks by the road offers some protection from the wind. I curl up among them, using my purse as an improvised pillow. Exhaustion overcomes me, and despite the fear, the cold, and the uncertainty, I fall asleep. The sunrise wakes me with its relentless light. For a moment, disoriented, I forget where I am and why. Then the reality returns like a slap. The abandonment, the betrayal, the imminent danger. I slowly sit up. Every muscle in my body protests. My mouth is dry, my skin tight from the night cold. I take a small sip of water, knowing I must conserve every drop. The sandwich is still intact. Hunger has not yet overcome my determination to ration it. The sun begins its ascent, promising a scorching day. I must take advantage of the early hours to advance as much as possible before the heat becomes unbearable. I set off again, ignoring the pain in my joints, the weakness in my legs. By mid-morning, the landscape begins to change subtly. Cacti are more abundant, the vegetation more varied. Am I getting closer to a populated area, or is it just my desperate imagination? The heat is oppressive now. Sweat soaks my clothes, increasing dehydration. The sips of water are increasingly tempting, but I force myself to resist. I will need that liquid when the sun is at its highest point. A distant buzzing makes me stop. I strain my ears, fearing it is another hallucination. But no, it's real. The sound of an engine. A vehicle is approaching. I plant myself in the middle of the road, waving my arms frantically. The car, a worn-out pickup truck, appears on the horizon. I scream, jump, do everything possible to attract attention. The pickup slows down. A middle-aged woman with sun-weathered skin and cautious eyes watches me from the driver's seat. "Are you all right, ma'am?" she asks in English, without turning off the engine, maintaining a safe distance. The words tumble out of my throat. How to explain the inexplicable? How to summarize the deepest betrayal in one sentence? "They abandoned me here," I finally managed to say. "My son and his wife left me to die." Incredulity crosses her face, quickly followed by compassion. She turns off the engine and gets out of the truck. "I'm Linda," she says, approaching slowly as if afraid of scaring me. "We're going to help you." And with those simple words, my world expands again. From the absolute solitude of abandonment to human connection, from the certainty of death to the possibility of life. Linda helps me into the pickup. She offers me fresh water, which I drink with desperate gratitude. She wraps me in a blanket she kept in the back. "I'll take you to Phoenix," she says as she starts the engine. "To the hospital first, and then to the police. Linda, what they did to you is a crime." A crime. The word resonates in my mind. Yes, what Michael and Clara did to me goes beyond family cruelty, beyond greed. They tried to kill me, and they almost succeeded. As the truck speeds down the highway, leaving behind the scene of my abandonment, a new emotion emerges amidst the pain and exhaustion. Determination. I will not just survive this, I will make them pay for what they did. The desert blurs through the window. My eyes close, overcome by fatigue and relief. The last thing I see before falling into a deep sleep is the worried face of Linda, a stranger who showed more humanity than my own flesh and blood. The metal thermos she offers me gives off aromatic steam. Cinnamon tea, my favorite. How did she know? I have no idea. But the gesture moves me more than I can express. The Phoenix General Hospital is a labyrinth of white corridors and the smell of disinfectant. I've been here for 3 days, recovering from severe dehydration, sun exposure, and exhaustion. The doctors say I was lucky. A few more hours in the desert, and my 68-year-old body would have collapsed. Linda comes to visit me every afternoon. This woman, who was transporting crafts from a nearby town when she found me, has become my guardian angel. It was she who insisted on calling the police from the hospital. She who held my hand while I recounted my story to the incredulous officers. "It's hard to believe," one of them had said, a young man with skeptical eyes. "Your own son?" "Greed makes monsters out of ordinary people," Linda replied before I could speak. "And this lady isn't lying. I found her practically dead on the highway." Eventually they believed me, or at least decided to investigate. They took my statement, photographed my injuries, collected samples from the water bottle and the remains of the sandwich I still had. Today, Detective Ramirez enters my room with a serious but satisfied expression. He is a middle-aged man, with the kind of face that has seen too many human tragedies to be easily surprised. "Mrs. Johnson," he says, sitting by my bed, "we have news." I sit up slowly, preparing myself for whatever he is about to tell me. "We have arrested your son and your daughter-in-law," he continues. "We found them at your house, packing their belongings. It seems they were planning to move quickly." A part of me expected this news, but hearing it out loud hits me hard. Michael arrested. My son handcuffed, taken to a cell. Despite what he did to me, the image causes me sharp pain. "Did they confess?" I ask, my voice barely a whisper. "Not initially," Ramirez replies, "but we have solid evidence." The analysis of the water bottle showed traces of sedatives. We found documents in their house, property transfer papers with your forged signature, loan applications using your house as collateral. And most importantly, his cell phone had GPS activated throughout the trip. We have the exact record of where they stopped and for how long. I close my eyes, absorbing the information. It wasn't an impulsive act, but a carefully elaborate plan. Days, perhaps weeks of preparation to get rid of me. "What happens now?" I finally ask. "They face serious charges. Abandonment of a vulnerable person with risk of death. Forgery of documents. Attempted fraud," he says. "With the evidence we have, it is highly likely that they will receive a significant sentence." I nod slowly. Justice, that's what I wanted, what I deserve. Then why do I feel this emptiness in my chest? "Can I see him?" The question escapes my lips before I can contain it. Ramirez looks surprised. "Your son? I wouldn't recommend it, Mrs. Johnson. Not now." "I need to look him in the eyes," I insist. "I need to understand." The detective sighs, rubbing his forehead. "I'll consult with the prosecutor, but I don't promise anything." When he leaves, I am left alone with my thoughts. The hospital room, which before seemed like a safe refuge, now feels like another prison. The white walls, the beeping machines, the nurses coming and going with professional smiles. Everything reminds me that my life has changed irrevocably. Linda arrives in the afternoon, bringing wildflowers and a thermos of homemade tea. Her presence is a balm to my wounded soul. "They were arrested," I tell her as I pour the tea into small plastic cups. She nods. "I heard it on the local news. It's good that there's justice." "Justice?" I repeat, tasting the word. My son is going to jail. The family I thought I had is destroyed. Is that justice? Linda takes my hand, her fingers rough from years of hard work. "Justice doesn't always bring peace, Eleanor. Sometimes it just brings necessary consequences." I reflect on her words while drinking the hot tea. Necessary consequences. Yes, Michael and Clara must face the consequences of their actions, but that doesn't mend the hole in my heart, the emptiness where my trust in the world once was. "What am I going to do now, Linda?" I ask, exposing my vulnerability. "I can't go back to that house. Not after this." "First, recover," she replies firmly. "Then one step at a time. My sister runs a community center here in Phoenix. They always need volunteer teachers for the after-school programs. Someone with your experience would be very valuable." The idea of being useful again, of teaching, of connecting with others, lights a small spark inside me. It's not a complete plan. It's not a solution to all my problems. But it is a beginning. "Thank you," I say simply. The words are insufficient to express my gratitude, but Linda seems to understand. We're stronger than we think, Eleanor, she says as she gathers her things to leave. You survived the desert. You can survive this too. After she leaves, I stay contemplating the wildflowers she brought. They grew in hostile conditions, finding cracks in the rocks, taking advantage of every drop of rain, surviving against all odds, like me. A week later, I am discharged from the hospital. The judicial process against Michael and Clara is underway. I was not allowed to see him after all. Perhaps it's for the best. Perhaps some wounds are too deep to face so soon. Linda takes me to a small apartment her family maintains for visitors. It's yours for as long as you need it, she insists when I try to talk about rent. Consider it a loan, not charity. I accept, promising myself that I will find a way to repay her kindness someday. That night, alone in an unfamiliar but safe space, I cry for the first time since the abandonment. I cry for the son I lost, for the life that crumbled, for the trust that was betrayed. I cry until I run out of tears, until exhaustion overcomes me. And when the dawn arrives, I get up, get dressed, make coffee, and take the first step toward my new life. A life I never expected to have at 68. A life I will have to build from the foundations, brick by brick. A life without my son, but perhaps with new connections, new purposes. The process lasted 8 months. The forensic evidence of the drugged coffee, the forged documents, and the testimonies of neighbors about my progressive isolation proved irrefutable. Michael and Clara received 5 years with the possibility of parole for good behavior. Barbara, Clara's mother, was not formally charged due to lack of direct evidence, but her moral participation in the plan was exposed during the trial. I saw her only once in the courthouse hallway. She looked at me with a mixture of hatred and fear, as if I were a ghost who returned to torment her. In a way, I was. My house was put up for sale. I couldn't imagine living there again, amidst contaminated memories. With the money, I bought a modest apartment near the community centre, where I now volunteer, teaching art to children from underprivileged neighbourhoods. Life goes on, different, unexpected, but it goes on. And I with it, one step at a time. The last ray of sun turned the heart monitor into a black silhouette against the wall, as silence engulfed the final echoes of a broken family. The Hope Community Centre is a hive of activity when I arrive every morning. Children running, mothers exchanging recipes and advice, seniors playing dominoes at the patio tables. This place, which began as a temporary refuge, has become the centre of my new life. 2 years have passed since that night in the desert. 2 years of rebuilding, of learning, of slow but constant healing. Gabrielle, Linda's sister and director of the centre, greets me with her usual warm smile. "The children are already asking for you," she says as we walk toward the room where I teach my painting classes. "Jamie brought his finished project to show you." Jamie, a 10-year-old boy with burn scars on his arms, is one of my most dedicated students. When he arrived at the centre, he barely spoke, ashamed of his scars. Now, after months of patient work with brushes and colours, he has been transformed. Art gave him a language when words failed him, like it did for me. The room is set up with canvases, paints, and brushes. Today we will work on self-portraits, an ambitious project for children this age, but I believe in challenging them. I believe in showing them that they can achieve more than they imagine. "Mrs. Eleanor," Jamie exclaims when he sees me enter. He runs toward me, proudly holding his canvas. He has painted a desert sunset, with vibrant colours that transform what could be a desolate landscape into something magically beautiful. "It's wonderful, Jamie," I say, genuinely impressed. "You've captured the light perfectly." "It's for you," he says, handing me the canvas, "to thank you for teaching me." The gesture deeply moves me. I accept the gift, promising him that it will occupy a special place in my apartment. The class unfolds amidst laughter, paint smudges, and small victories. I observe these children, many of them facing difficult circumstances at home, and I marvel at their resilience, how they find joy in small moments, how they get up every time they fall. They remind me of myself. After class, Gabrielle invites me to her office. There is a special sparkle in her eyes, the kind of look that anticipates good news. "We received the response from the foundation," she announces as soon as we close the door. "They approved the grant to expand the art program." I hold my breath. We had worked for months on that application, documenting the positive impact of art on the children at the centre, planning a broader program that included music and theatre. "This means," I begin, almost afraid to complete the sentence. "It means you'll have a real salary, Eleanor," Gabrielle confirms. "You won't just be a volunteer anymore. You'll be the official director of the art program with a budget for materials and to hire assistants." The news hits me hard. A real job, a defined purpose, recognition for what I have built here, among the rubble of my former life. "I don't know what to say," I murmur, overwhelmed by emotion. "Say yes," Gabrielle replies, laughing. "Say you'll keep transforming lives through art, as you've done with Jamie and so many others." "Yes," I finally say, my voice firmer. "Of course, yes." That night, in my small apartment, I contemplate Jamie's painting. I have hung it on the main wall, where I can see it from anywhere in the living room. His interpretation of the desert, bright, vibrant, almost hopeful, contrasts with my own memories of that place. It makes me think about how different perspectives can transform the same reality. My phone rings, interrupting my thoughts. It's Linda, calling to confirm our dinner tomorrow. Since she rescued me, we have maintained a friendship that has become one of the pillars of my new life. "How was your day?" she asks after the initial greetings. I tell her about the grant, about my new position, about Jamie's painting. Her joy for me is so genuine that I can almost feel it through the phone. "You deserve it, Eleanor," she says. "You've worked hard for this." "I never would have made it without you," I reply, gratitude forming a knot in my throat. "Without you, I wouldn't even be alive." "Nonsense," she retorts with her usual frankness. "I just picked you up from the road. Everything else you've done yourself, with your strength, your determination." After hanging up, I keep thinking about her words. Is it true? Have I been the one who has rebuilt my life brick by brick from the foundations? My gaze falls on a folder on the table. It contains the trial documents, the sentences, the police reports. I haven't opened them in months, but I haven't been able to get rid of them either. They are the tangible reminder of what I survived, of what I overcame. Michael must be serving his 3rd year in prison now. Sometimes I wonder how he is, if he has reflected on what he did, if he feels genuine remorse or only regret for being caught. I haven't tried to contact him. Some wounds are too deep, some betrayals too absolute. And yet sometimes, in the stillness of the night, I remember the child he was, the young man who brought me flowers on my birthday, the man who, before Clara, faithfully came every Sunday for lunch with me. Where did that son get lost? At what moment was love replaced by greed? Was it gradual or sudden? Were there signs I didn't see, moments when I could have intervened? Unanswered questions that I have already learned to let go of. The past cannot be changed, only the present is in my hands, and I am determined to mold it with the same dedication with which I teach my students to shape clay and color canvas. The next morning brings a surprise. A letter from the parole board. I open it with trembling hands, anticipating its contents. Johnson, we inform you that Michael Fuentes Ramirez has applied for early parole for good behavior. As the victim of the crime, you have the right to submit an impact statement for the hearing scheduled for July 15. The letter continues, but the words blur before my eyes. Michael wants to get out early. He wants to return to the outside world, and somehow my opinion matters in that decision. What will I say? That he is still a danger? That he deserves to serve every day of his sentence? Or that I believe in the possibility of redemption, like the one I preach to my students when they make mistakes? I have no immediate answer. I need time to process this, to examine my own conflicting feelings. I put the letter in a drawer and prepare to go to the center. Today, the community center is unusually quiet. The children are concentrated on their canvases, capturing memories of their summer vacations. I observe their faces, the intensity with which they mix colors, the delicacy with which they trace lines. In moments like this, I find peace. But the letter still weighs on my mind. Michael wants parole. My son, who tried to kill me, could get out before serving his full sentence. "You're very quiet today, Mrs. Eleanor," says Jamie, looking up from his painting. His eyes, too wise for his age, study me with concern. "I'm just thinking, honey," I reply with a smile that doesn't reach my eyes. "Sad or happy thoughts?" he insists. "Complicated," I admit. Sometimes life presents us with difficult decisions. Jamie nods as if he understands perfectly, even though he is only 11 years old. Perhaps he does understand. The children who come to the center have faced more difficulties than many adults. "My mom says that when you don't know what to do, you have to listen here," he says, pointing to his chest. "Because the head sometimes gets confused, but the heart knows." His words, so simple and profound, stay with me throughout the day. What does my heart say about Michael? Under layers of pain, betrayal, and fear, what remains of the maternal love that was once unconditional? That afternoon, after classes, I sit on a bench in the park near the center. The Phoenix sun warms my skin as I watch families pass by, mothers holding their children's hands, fathers carrying their little ones on their shoulders, grandparents sharing ice cream with their grandchildren. Everyday scenes of family love that now seem to belong to another dimension. "May I sit down?" The voice startles me. I look up and see Gabrielle with 2 cups of coffee in her hands. I make room for her on the bench. "I saw you leave with a worried look," she says, offering me one of the cups. "Do you want to talk about it?" I tell her about the letter, about the parole hearing, about my confusion. Gabrielle listens without interrupting, giving me space to order my thoughts as I express them out loud. "What would you do?" I finally ask. Gabrielle sighs, taking a sip of her coffee before answering. "I can't tell you what to do, Eleanor. No one can. It's your story, your pain, your decision." "I know," I reply, "but I need perspective." "Then I'll tell you what I see," she says after a moment. "I see a woman who survived the unimaginable, who rebuilt her life from scratch, who found ways to transform her pain into something beautiful that helps others." She pauses. "I also see someone who, despite everything, has not let bitterness consume her." Her words move me. It is true that I have fought against resentment, against the desire for revenge. I haven't always won that battle, but I've never stopped trying. "The question isn't whether Michael deserves your forgiveness," Gabrielle continues. "The question is what you need. Continue healing." My hands, which survived the desert and learned to create beauty, now held the coffee cup firmly as the sunset light transformed the park, reminding me that after the darkness always comes clarity. That night, sitting in my small studio, I take out paper and pencil. If I am going to submit a statement for the hearing, I need to order my thoughts. But instead of words, my hand begins to sketch. I trace Michael's face. Not as I saw him last, hardened by greed and calculation, but as I remember him in better moments. Michael at 5 years old, with his toothless smile. Michael as a teenager, with his frown of concentration while studying. Michael as an adult, before Clara, with the first expression lines framing his eyes. The images flow, one after another, telling the story of a son who was loved, of a relationship that was real before twisting into something unrecognizable. When I finish, I have before me a collage of drawn memories, a shared life, captured in graphite strokes. And among the images, like invisible threads connecting them, is the question I haven't dared to ask directly. Is there any possibility of redemption for Michael? I don't have an answer. I just know that I need to see him, confront him, before I can decide. The next day, I contact the parole board. I request a visit to the prison before the hearing. I want to talk to Michael, face to face, without lawyers or officers mediating. I want to look into the eyes of the man who tried to kill me and see if anything remains of the son I raised. The request is approved with surprising speed. 3 days later, I find myself in the visiting room of the state penitentiary, my hands trembling, clutching my purse, my heart beating loudly against my ribs. And then they bring him in. Michael is thinner than I remembered. His hair, once black like mine, shows premature grey. He walks with his head down, his shoulders slumped. When he sees me, he stops short, as if he has seen a ghost. Perhaps to him, I am. Mum! The word is barely audible. Michael, I reply, my voice firmer than I expected. He sits across from me, separated by a metal table bolted to the floor. His hands, handcuffed, rest on the cold surface. Hands I once held while he was learning to walk. Hands that later pushed me into the abyss. I didn't expect to see you, he finally says, breaking the tense silence. I received the notification about your parole hearing, I explain. They wanted my statement. He nods slowly, not looking directly at me. Are you going to oppose it? I don't know yet, I answer honestly. That's why I'm here. I need to understand. Why, Michael? I need to know why. He closes his eyes, as if the question causes him physical pain. When he opens them again, I see something I didn't expect. Tears. There's no excuse, he says, his voice breaking. I could tell you it was Clara's idea, or that her mother manipulated me, or that I was desperate for money. All of that is true, but it's not an excuse. Why should I believe you now? I ask. Michael looks toward the swings where children were playing. I don't expect you to. The silence between us weighed more than any explanation. I take a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure. Do you know how I felt, Michael? Do you have any idea what it's like for your own son to abandon you in the desert, to die? No, he admits. Tears are streaming freely now. I can't imagine that horror, and I live with that guilt every day, every hour. Is that what you want me to believe? That you're repentant? I'm not asking you to believe anything, he replies, surprising me. I don't deserve your trust. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand the magnitude of what I did, and that if I could go back. But you can't, I interrupt him. No one can. No, he concedes. I can't. We remain in silence, the weight of the irreparable between us. I observe my son, looking for the monster who abandoned me. But I only see a broken man, consumed by remorse. Is it genuine, or is it another manipulation? What has happened to Clara? I ask, changing the subject. She's serving her sentence in another facility, he replies. We've been allowed to write to each other. She has also changed, Mum. Prison makes you face your demons. Are you still together? He shakes his head. Not like before. There's too much guilt between us now. But we support each other. We're all we have. His words hurt me more than I expected. There was a time when I was all he had. Before Clara, before the greed, before the betrayal. If you're granted parole, what will you do? I ask. Work. Try to rebuild something of a life, and… He hesitates, as if fearing my reaction, and find some way to repair the damage I caused. Not to you. I know that's impossible, but maybe to others. You were always strong, Michael murmured. No, I learned to be, I replied, adjusting the edge of his sheet. His eyes closed briefly. Too late to understand it. The visit ends too soon, and at the same time, not soon enough. I stand up, picking up my purse, feeling the weight of the decision I must make. Mum, Michael says when I am about to leave, whatever your decision is about the hearing, I'll accept it. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, more than words can express. I nod, unable to respond. What do you say to the son who tried to kill you, but now cries remorsefully? There is no manual for this. There is no precedent in my experience. I leave the prison with more questions than answers. The phoenix sun greets me, relentless and bright, reminding me that life continues, that the world keeps turning despite our personal dramas. In the taxi back home, I make a decision. It won't be easy. It won't be perfect. But it's the only one that allows me to move forward without the past consuming me. That night, I write my statement for the hearing. I do not ask for revenge or additional punishment, nor do I advocate for immediate release. I simply recount the facts, the impact they had on me, and express my belief in the possibility of change, in the human capacity for genuine repentance. I cannot forgive the unforgivable, I write in the conclusion, but I can choose not to let hatred define the rest of my life. If Michael Fuentes has found true remorse and is committed to repairing the damage he has caused, I believe he deserves the opportunity to prove it. I sign the document, seal it in an envelope, and leave it on the table. Tomorrow I will send it. Tomorrow I will take another step on this unexpected path that has become my life. For now, I take my brushes and a blank canvas. There is beauty I need to create, stories I need to tell through color and form. My story, with all its scars and its moments of unexpected grace. A perfectly white feather landed on the newly turned earth. I left it there, rocked by the same wind that had once erased my footprints in the desert. The Renaissance in the Desert exhibition occupies the main gallery of the Phoenix Cultural Center. My paintings, landscapes of the Sonoran Desert, portraits of survivors, scenes of life at the community center, cover the white walls, attracting curious glances and admiring comments. I never imagined this moment. At 71 years old, having my first solo exhibition, being introduced as the artist Eleanor Johnson, whose work explores themes of resilience, transformation, and hope. Gabrielle is by my side, beaming with pride. See? I told you your work deserved to be seen. I smile, still overwhelmed by the attention. Local journalists have come to cover the event. An art critic from New York City has written a glowing review. Even half of the works have been sold, with the proceeds dedicated to expanding the community center's art programs. Eleanor, Linda calls me, approaching with a glass of champagne. There's someone who wants to meet you, a children's book editor. He's interested in your illustrations. The evening progresses amidst introductions, congratulations, and conversations about art and purpose. I feel like I am living someone else's life, a version of myself that I never knew existed. And then I see him. At the back of the gallery, intently observing one of my most personal paintings, an abstract self-portrait titled "What the Desert Didn't Take," is Michael, my son, free. 8 months have passed since the parole hearing. He was granted early release, with strict restrictions, weekly reporting to his supervising officer, maintaining stable employment, not leaving the state without authorization, not contacting me without my explicit consent. I haven't seen him since then. He hasn't tried to communicate, respecting my space and the terms of his freedom. How did he know about the exhibition? Why has he come? What is he looking for? Gabrielle follows my gaze, and her expression tightens. Do you want me to ask him to leave? No, I reply, surprising myself. Are you sure? I nod slowly. Yes, it's a public space. He has the right to be here. But I don't approach him, nor does he approach me. For the next hour, we move in separate orbits within the gallery, conscious of the other's presence, but maintaining distance. It is a strange dance of proximity and distance, of recognition and caution. Finally, as the crowd begins to disperse and the exhibition is about to end, Michael heads toward the exit. As he passes near me, our eyes briefly meet. Congratulations, he says simply. Your work is beautiful. Before I can reply, he continues on his way and leaves the gallery. That night, back in my apartment, I can't sleep. The brief interaction with Michael has stirred emotions I thought were controlled. It's not pain I feel, nor fear. It is something more complex, more nuanced. A mixture of sadness for what we lost, acceptance of what is, and perhaps, very faintly, curiosity about what could be. The next morning, I receive an envelope at the community center. It has no sender, but I know who it is from. Inside is a handwritten letter and a newspaper clipping. Mum, the letter begins. First, I want to apologize for showing up at your exhibition without notice. It wasn't my intention to make you uncomfortable. I saw the announcement in the paper, and I wanted to see what you have become, what you have achieved despite what we did to you. He continues, explaining that he now works as an assistant at a rehabilitation center for addicts. It's not a coincidence, he writes. I chose this path because I understand what it is like to lose everything due to bad decisions, and I don't want others to do the same. I want to help others not make the same mistakes. The newspaper clipping is a small article about a mentoring program for at-risk youth. Michael appears in a photograph, working with teenagers in a community garden. His face shows a serenity I don't recognize, so different from the tormented man I saw in prison. I don't ask you for anything, the letter concludes. I just wanted you to know that I am trying to honor the second chance you gave me by not opposing my parole. I live every day trying to be better than the man who betrayed you. He signs simply. With respect and repentance, Michael. I fold the letter carefully and put it in my purse. I don't know what I feel. I don't know what I want to do with this information. I only know that, for the first time since the abandonment, the image of Michael in my mind begins to transform. It is not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps it is the beginning of something, a recognition that people can change, that repentance can be genuine, that the future is not written in stone. The following weeks bring unexpected changes. The editor I met at the exhibition offers me the chance to illustrate a children's book about the Sonoran Desert. I accept enthusiastically, immersing myself in a new creative project that combines my love for art and teaching. The community center receives a generous anonymous donation for the art program. Gabrielle suspects it comes from Michael, although there is no way to confirm it. "What do you want me to do?" she asks. "Do I accept it or return it?" I reflect on the question. If the money comes from Michael, is it an attempt to buy my forgiveness? Or is it a genuine way to contribute to something he knows I value? Accept it, I finally decide. The children need it more than we need our pride. A month later, I receive another letter from Michael. This time, it is a formal invitation to the inauguration of a new program at the rehabilitation center where he works. "I'll understand if you don't want to come," he writes, "but it would mean a lot to me if you saw the work we are doing." The invitation stays on my table for days. I look at it every morning at breakfast, every night before bed. Am I ready for this step? Do I want to open that door, knowing that I won't be able to close it again? Finally, the day before the event, I make my decision. The rehabilitation center is in a renovated building north of the city. When I arrive, there is a small group of people gathered in the courtyard: center staff, former addicts in recovery, supportive family members. Michael is talking with a young man, his posture relaxed but attentive. When he sees me, he freezes for a moment, as if he can't believe his eyes. I approach slowly, aware of the curious glances. To these people, I am just an older woman arriving at a community event. They don't know our history. They don't know the abyss we have crossed to reach this moment. "You came?" Michael asks when I'm in front of him. "I wanted to see," I reply simply. He introduces me to the young man he was talking to, a former addict who is now a counselor in training. Then he shows me the center, explaining the different programs, the therapeutic approach, the results they have achieved. He speaks with passion and knowledge, revealing a side of him I had never seen. "How did you end up here?" I ask, as we tour the garden that the residents maintain as part of their therapy. "In prison," he replies. "I participated in a recovery program, not because I had addictions, but because I wanted to understand what leads someone to destroy what they love. I found answers I didn't expect." "What kind of answers?" "That selfishness is an addiction, that greed consumes like any drug, that we justify the unjustifiable when we put our desires above everything else." He pauses. "I learned that the way back begins with brutal honesty about who you have been and a clear vision of who you want to be." His words resonate with me in an unexpected way. Isn't that what I myself have been doing these 3 years? Brutally facing what happened to me, consciously deciding who I want to be despite it. The inauguration ceremony is simple, but moving. Michael speaks briefly, thanking those who have made the new program possible. He doesn't mention his past specifically, but there are veiled references to unforgivable mistakes and the possibility of redemption. When the event ends, we meet again near the exit. "Thank you for coming," he says. "It means more than I can express." "You're doing good work here," I reply honestly. "I'm trying to repair some of the damage I've caused in the world," he says. "I can never undo what I did to you, but I can try to make my life from now on have some value." I nod, perfectly understanding that impulse. I'm rebuilding too, Michael. In different ways, we are both trying to create something new from the ruins. A silence settles between us, not awkward, but contemplative. Finally, I dare to ask what has been on my mind since I received his first letter. "What happened to Clara?" His expression darkens slightly. "She's still in prison. She was denied parole. Her behavior hasn't been exemplary." "Are you still in contact?" "Minimally," he admits. "I write to her occasionally, but our lives have taken very different paths." "And Barbara?" "She's living with a friend. She's bitter, resentful. She hasn't accepted her share of responsibility for what happened. In the funeral, Barbara remained distant. When everyone had left, I saw her place an old photograph of Michael as a child on the coffin. Our eyes met for an instant. In her eyes there was rage, but also the same pain I felt. Without words, each of us went our way. We say goodbye with an awkward, halfway gesture, between a handshake and something more personal. It is not reconciliation. It is not complete forgiveness. But it is a beginning, a small step on a path I never expected to walk. Back home, I reflect on the unexpected turns of life. 3 years ago, abandoned in the desert, I thought everything was over, that my story would conclude on that desolate highway under the relentless sun. Instead, I found a new beginning, a second life that, in many ways, is fuller and more authentic than the first. And now, Michael also seems to be finding his own path to redemption. Will that path lead us to reunite again as mother and son? It is too soon to know. There are wounds that may never fully heal, trust that may never be completely restored. But today, for the first time since that night in the desert, I contemplate the possibility of a future where the past does not define every interaction, where pain is not the only legacy between us. It is a fragile, tentative thought, like a green shoot in burnt ground. It will need time, care, patience. It might not survive. But it exists, and that, in itself, is a small miracle. The half-drunk glass of water next to his bed reflected the window, fragmenting the light into small rainbows on the white sheet. The phone rings while I am finishing the illustrations for my second children's book. 6 months have passed since the inauguration at the rehabilitation center. 6 months of cautious but constant contact with Michael. Occasional messages. A shared coffee in a public place. Small steps towards something we still don't dare to name. Eleanor Johnson. The voice on the other end of the line is professional, distant. Yes, this is she. I'm calling from General Hospital. You are listed as Michael Fuentes' emergency contact. My heart stops for an instant. What happened? Your son was admitted this morning. We need you to come as soon as possible. The world blurs as I drive to the hospital. An accident? A sudden illness? The woman gave no details. Only the urgency of her tone indicated the seriousness of the situation. At the emergency reception, they direct me to a waiting room where I find Clara. She is thinner than I remembered, her face marked by the years in prison. When she sees me, she stands up abruptly. "Mrs. Eleanor," she says, her voice trembling. I didn't know if you would come." "What happened to Michael?" I ask directly. She collapses back into the chair, as if the words weigh too much. "Brain tumor. Inoperable," she says. The doctors say, her voice breaks. They say he has months, maybe weeks left. The news hits me with physical force. I sit down next to her, needing support to keep from falling. "How? When?" "It started with headaches in prison," Clara explains. "They got worse after his release. A month ago they diagnosed the tumor. He's been receiving treatment, but this morning he collapsed at work." Why didn't he tell me anything? The question escapes my lips before I can contain it. Clara looks at me with a mixture of sadness and understanding. "He said he didn't want to be a burden to you, not after everything he did to you." The irony is almost unbearable. My son, who once conspired to get rid of me because he saw me as a burden, now suffers in silence so as not to become a burden to me. "Can I see him?" "They are stabilizing him. The doctor will come get us when he's ready." We remain in silence, two women united by the man we both loved and betrayed in different ways. When did you get out of prison? I finally ask, more to break the silence than out of genuine interest. 3 weeks ago, she says. Parole for family emergency, when Michael's condition worsened. I nod, processing the information. Where are you living? In a small apartment near the rehabilitation center. Michael insisted on continuing to work until he couldn't anymore. The doctor arrives before I can ask more questions. He is a young man with tired eyes and a serious expression. Relatives of Michael Fuentes? We stand up simultaneously. I'm his mother, I say. His wife, Clara adds, although I know they never legally married. The doctor nods, without questioning the complicated family dynamic. Michael is stable for now, but the tumor has grown significantly, he says. The intracranial pressure caused the collapse this morning. We've managed to reduce it temporarily, but… How long? Clara interrupts. It's difficult to say precisely. Weeks, maybe a month or two. The cancer is aggressive and has reached a stage where treatments can only offer comfort, not cure. My legs threaten to give way. The doctor must notice because he quickly pulls up a chair. Can I see him now? I ask when I regain some composure. Yes, but he's sedated. He probably won't wake up until tomorrow. It doesn't matter. I need to see him. He leads me through sterile corridors to a private room. Clara follows us at a distance, as if unsure of her right to be there. And then I see him. Michael, my son, connected to machines that monitor his vital signs, with a bandage around his head. Michael lies motionless in the hospital bed, his face pale against the white sheets. The room is dim, with only a small lamp illuminating his profile. I approach slowly, as if afraid of waking him, although the doctor said he is deeply sedated. I sit by his bed, observing my son's face. Under the effects of the sedation, he looks younger, more vulnerable. I see traces of the child he was, the teenager who rebelled against the world, the man I once knew before everything went wrong. Clara remains at the door, as if she doesn't dare to fully enter this intimate space. Our eyes meet briefly, and in her eyes I see something I didn't expect. Genuine shame. You can come closer, I finally tell her. He needs you too. She advances with hesitant steps and sits on the other side of the bed. Her hands, which tremble slightly, rest on Michael's. He's been asking for you, she says in a low voice, ever since he got the diagnosis. He wanted to talk to you, explain everything, but he was afraid you'd think he was just looking for your pity. Why didn't you tell me? Clara lowers her gaze. I didn't think I had the right to enter your life again, not after what we did. Silence settles between us, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of the machines. Two women watching over a dying man, united by a past of betrayal, and perhaps by a present of shared repentance. What happened to Barbara? I ask, remembering Clara's mother, the woman who had so influenced the plan to get rid of me. She died 8 months ago, Clara replies. Lung cancer. It was… fast. I'm sorry, I say automatically, surprised to feel something akin to compassion. She never repented, Clara continues. Until the end, she justified what we did. She said we were only looking out for everyone's best interests. And you? Do you believe that too? Her eyes fill with tears. No, not anymore. Prison gives you a lot of time to think, to face what you've done. And seeing Michael consume himself with guilt, that made me truly understand the horror of what we did to him. I nod, not knowing what else to say. A part of me wants to hate her, to keep alive the rage that sustained me for so long. But in the face of Michael's imminent death, that hatred seems small, insignificant. I took his drawings with the same hands that once held him, now illuminated by the faint light filtering through the hospital curtains, so different from the relentless clarity of the desert that should have buried me. We spend the night in the hospital, taking turns resting on the uncomfortable couch in the room. Neither of us wants to leave, fearing that Michael will wake up and find himself alone. At dawn, a movement in the bed alerts us. Michael is waking up. His eyes open slowly, disoriented at first. "Mom!" His voice is barely a hoarse whisper. "I'm here, son," I reply, moving closer. His gaze clears as he recognizes me. Then he sees Clara, and a complex expression crosses his face. Relief, guilt, resignation. "I didn't want you to see me like this," he says, trying to sit up. "Stay still," I order him with the firmness only a mother can have. "Don't waste your energy." He obeys, lying down again. "I'm sorry," he murmurs. "I wanted to tell you, but—" "Shh," I interrupt him. "It doesn't matter now." "Yes, it does matter," he insists, his voice stronger. "I've spent these months trying to repair some of the damage I caused. I wanted you to see that I had changed, that I understood the magnitude of my mistake. I didn't want your last memory of me to be of the man who betrayed you." His words move me more than I expected. It is not forgiveness he seeks, but redemption. Not my pity, but my recognition of his change. "I've seen you," I assure him. "I've seen your work at the center. I've seen how you help others. I've been watching you, Michael." A tear escapes his eye. "Thank you," he says simply. The following days we establish a routine. I temporarily move into Michael and Clara's apartment, which is closer to the hospital. We take turns accompanying him, making sure he is never alone. When he is awake, we talk about everything and nothing. Memories of his childhood, stories of my work at the community center, plans for the programs he started at the rehabilitation center. We avoid talking about the desert, the abandonment, the betrayal. Not out of denial, but because it is no longer the center of our story. Like an old scar, it's there, but it no longer constantly hurts. One afternoon, while Clara has gone home to rest, Michael asks me to read to him. His sight has begun to fail, another symptom of the advancing tumor. "What do you want me to read to you?" I ask, checking the books by his bed. "Your books," he replies. "The ones you've illustrated. I want to see the world through your eyes." So I read him The Desert Blooms, my first children's book, showing him the illustrations, describing the colors and shapes to compensate for his blurred vision. Then, Desert Stars, the second one, not yet published but already laid out. "They are beautiful, Mum," he says when I finish. "You always had that gift for seeing beauty where others only saw desolation." "It's a lesson I learned late in life," I respond. "Sometimes we need to lose everything to see what truly matters." He nods, perfectly understanding. "Do you know what the hardest thing about dying is?" he asks suddenly. The question startles me, but I answer honestly. "No. Tell me." "It's not the pain or the fear of the unknown. It's knowing that I am leaving unfinished business, wounds not completely healed." "Michael, no, let me finish. I need to say this." He takes a breath, as if gathering strength. "What we did to you was unforgivable. I know. I don't expect your complete forgiveness. But I need you to know that I understand now the value of what I tried to destroy. I understand what unconditional love means, because that's what you've shown me by coming here, taking care of me despite everything." Tears stream freely down my face. I don't try to stop them. "Forgiveness isn't a destination, Michael," I finally say. "It's a journey, and we are walking it together." He takes my hand, his fingers weak but determined. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, for allowing me to die as your son, not as your executioner. That night, when Clara returns, I find her crying in the hallway outside the room. I can't bear it, she confesses when I approach. Seeing him like this, knowing that I contributed to destroying the years we could have had together, the years you could have had with him. I hug her, surprising both of us. The time we have left is all that matters now, I tell her. Don't waste it on regrets. The weeks pass, and Michael visibly weakens. The doctors constantly adjust his pain medication, but there are days when nothing seems to help. In those moments, we can only be present, holding his hands, reminding him that he is not alone. One morning, while Clara is sleeping exhausted on the sofa, Michael calls me to his side. I have something for you, he says, his voice barely audible. In the drawer. I open the nightstand drawer and find an envelope. Inside is a legal document and a letter. It's my will, he explains. I've left everything I have to the community center art program. It's not much, but I wanted it to be something you care about. Michael, you didn't need to. And the letter, he continues, ignoring my protest. Clara, it's for you, for when I'm no longer here. Promise me you'll read it then, not before. I promise, I say, putting the envelope in my purse. One more thing, he adds, making a visible effort. Clara. She doesn't have anyone else. When I'm gone, I'll take care of her, I promise, understanding what he is asking of me. She won't be alone. A weak smile illuminates his face. You were always the strongest of us, Mum. Now I understand where that strength came from. 3 days later, Michael slips into a coma. The doctors warn us it is a matter of hours, perhaps a day or two. Clara and I stay by his side, talking to him even though we don't know if he can hear us, holding his hands as his breathing becomes increasingly shallow. In the early morning of the second day, while a storm lashes Phoenix, Michael exhales for the last time. A soft sigh, almost imperceptible, and then silence. The heart monitor emits a continuous beep that seems to last an eternity before the nurses rush in. There is nothing to be done. My son is gone. The funeral is simple, but surprisingly well attended. Residents and staff from the rehabilitation center, work colleagues, even some of my students from the community center come to pay their respects. Everyone has stories about the Michael I barely got to know, the patient counselor, the loyal friend, the man determined to do good. Clara remains by my side throughout the ceremony, her presence a constant reminder of our shared history, of the strange connection we have forged in these weeks. When everyone has left and only we remain in front of the freshly covered grave, I take Michael's letter out of my purse. Do you want me to leave you alone to read it? Clara asks. No, I reply. Stay. I open the envelope with trembling hands and unfold the letter. Dear Mum, it begins. If you are reading this, it means I have finally paid for my mistakes in the only way the universe considered appropriate. I don't see my illness as a punishment, but as an opportunity to put things in perspective, to understand what truly matters. He continues, speaking of his process of change, of how prison and then illness taught him the value of time, of relationships, of the unconditional love he once scorned. My greatest regret, he writes, is not dying young. It is having wasted the years we had, having valued the material above the irreplaceable. But my greatest comfort is that in the end, you allowed me to be your son again. You gave me the gift of your presence, of your care, even though I didn't deserve it. Tears blur my vision, but I continue reading. I ask you one last favor. Help Clara find her way. She is also changing, learning, growing. She will need guidance, and there is no one better than you to show her how to rebuild after devastation. The letter ends with a postscript that brings a smile through my tears. Please, plant something in the desert for me, something that will flourish against all odds, like you did. I fold the letter carefully and put it away. Clara looks at me expectantly, but doesn't ask about its content. She respects my privacy, my grief. Let's go home, I finally tell her. There's a lot to do. In the following months, Clara and I find an unexpected balance. We are not friends exactly, but we share a bond that no one else could understand. She begins volunteering at the community centre, helping with administrative tasks. She has a knack for numbers, for organisation, talents she once used for selfish ends, and now puts at the service of others. I continue with my art classes, with my illustrations, with my rebuilt life. The pain of losing Michael is there, but it is not paralysing. It is a part of me, like the desert experience, like everything I have lived. A year after the funeral, Clara and I travel to the highway where I was abandoned. We bring desert plants, cacti, agaves, and ocotillos. We plant them next to the road, creating a small oasis where there was once only desolation. Why here? Clara asks as she waters the plants with the water we brought. Doesn't it bring back bad memories? Places aren't good or bad by themselves, I reply. They are what we do in them, what we leave behind. We finish planting in silence, each lost in her own thoughts. When we get back into the car, I look one last time at the small garden we have created. Do you think they will survive? Clara asks, following my gaze. Some will, some won't, I reply honestly. But the ones that do will be stronger for the difficulties they faced, like us. We return to Phoenix as the sun begins to set, painting the sky orange and purple. The desert, which was once the scene of my abandonment, now stretches before me like a canvas of possibilities. At 72 years old, I have learned that life rarely follows the path we plan. That pain can become purpose, that betrayal can give way to understanding, that even in the most arid desert, life finds ways to flourish. It is not the ending I expected for my story. It is better, it is real, it is mine. My hands, which survived the desert and learned to create beauty, now firmly held the paintbrush as the morning light transformed my studio, reminding me that after the darkness always comes clarity. The end.